You ever watch someone destroy their own house while thinking they're teaching you a lesson? That's exactly what happened with my neighbor, Patricia, our local HOA president and self-proclaimed guardian of neighborhood aesthetics. I never imagined a set of rain gutters could start a war. But that's where this storm began, literally. I'd lived on Pinecrest Lane for 5 peaceful years before Patricia moved in. The moment she unpacked her first box, she started handing out HOA courtesy notes like parking tickets. My crime? Installing stainless steel rain gutters that didn't match the colonial charm of her vision. Never mind that my gutters kept my foundation dry during every downpour. To her, they were a metallic eyesore. I laughed it off at first. I told her, "Patricia, these gutters are functional, not decorative." She didn't like that. She pursed her lips and said, "This community values uniformity. Mr. Dalton, your gutters disrupt that harmony." 2 weeks later, while I was away on a business trip, she decided to restore harmony herself. My neighbor Rick caught her red-handed with a ladder, a hacksaw, and a smug grin, cutting through the downspouts along the side of my house. He snapped a few photos and called me immediately. By the time I got home, the damage was done. My gutters were lying twisted in the driveway like broken limbs. Patricia stood on her porch, pretending she didn't know a thing. When I confronted her, she smiled and said, "Oh, those ugly pipes? Consider it a community improvement. You should be thanking me." I didn't thank her. I called the police, but the officer said it was a civil dispute. Patricia crossed her arms, smirking as he left. "You can file all the paperwork you want," she said, "but those gutters were never approved." I knew right then this wasn't over. I replaced the gutters, this time stronger, sleeker, and anchored deep. But Patricia wasn't done. She sent HOA violation letters, photos, and even threats to find me daily. The woman had declared war. And then the skies turned gray. The weather reports started flashing warnings of a historic thunderstorm. While everyone rushed to secure their homes, Patricia stayed calm, too calm. After all, she had no gutters at all. She'd removed hers a week prior to set the community standard. And that's when karma decided to pay her a visit. The storm didn't just arrive. It roared in like a freight train from hell. By dusk, the clouds had turned the sky into an angry bruise. Wind howled through Pinecrest Lane, rattling windows and bending trees sideways. Everyone hunkered down, securing their homes and praying the power would hold. Everyone except Patricia Hendress, of course. She strutted outside earlier that day, boasting to the neighbors about her modern, clean roofline. No gutters, no pipes, no ugly attachments. That smug grin of hers vanished by midnight. Rain came down in sheets, thick, pounding waves that turned driveways into streams. From my living room window, I could see the water gushing off Patricia's roof like a broken waterfall, splashing hard against her siding and pooling around the foundation. It didn't take long before the puddles became rivers. Her flower beds floated away like rafts. My new reinforced gutters were holding perfectly. Every downspout hummed as water channeled neatly into the drainage line I'd built years ago. I leaned back with a grim smile. Patricia had mocked those gutters as ugly pipes. Now they were my fortress. Around 1 a.m., the first scream cut through the storm. "It's leaking! It's leaking everywhere!" It was Patricia, voice shrill even over the thunder. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped onto the porch just in time to see her running out in a raincoat, clutching a towel like it could stop the flood pouring out her front door. Rick, my neighbor, yelled from across the street. "Roof's backing up! She's got no drainage." He was right. Without gutters, rain had collected at the edges of her roof, seeping under shingles, swelling the plywood. The fascia boards were already splitting. Lightning flashed, and I saw it happen. The gutterless side of her roof sagged, then cracked with a sickening sound. A massive section gave way, dumping water, insulation, and half her ceiling right into her living room. Patricia's scream echoed through the storm. I rushed to help, but she refused. "This is your fault," she yelled, soaked to the bone. "Your illegal gutters redirected water onto my property." Even in the chaos, I almost laughed. My gutters were draining downhill, away from her house entirely. The truth was simple. Patricia had destroyed my system, then copied my setup halfway, removing her own in a fit of arrogance. And now, nature had handed her the bill. But things were about to get worse for her. Because I had those photos. And the HOA's next meeting was only 2 days away. By sunrise, the storm had passed. But the wreckage it left behind wasn't just physical. Patricia's roof looked like it had been peeled open by a giant can opener. Tarps flapped weakly over the gaping hole, and water dripped from every corner of her porch. The once pristine model home of Pinecrest Lane now smelled like damp, carpet, and shattered pride. I stood across the street sipping my coffee, watching her struggle to scoop rainwater into buckets. The irony was too rich. Less than a week ago, she'd been bragging about community standards. Now, She was the cautionary tale. When I walked over, she glared at me with eyes red from crying and fury. "You think this is funny?" she snapped. I shrugged. "Not funny, just poetic." She stomped her foot. "You're going to pay for this." "I've already called the HOA board. They'll fine you for the runoff that caused all this damage." I smiled calmly. "You might want to check your email first." The night before, while the storm was raging, I'd sent every HOA member the photos Rick took, the ones showing Patricia cutting my gutters with her hacksaw. I attached a timestamp, a copy of my repair receipts, and a short message. "If anyone's responsible for flooding property, it's not me, it's your president." When she opened her phone and saw the reply chain, her face turned white. The HOA vice president, a quiet man named Leonard, had replied to everyone. "This is a clear violation of HOA bylaws and criminal property damage. We'll meet immediately." The emergency meeting took place that same afternoon in the community clubhouse. Patricia arrived late, wearing sunglasses indoors, trying to hide her exhaustion. I sat in the back with Rick, letting the evidence speak for itself. The board members murmured among themselves, flipping through the printed photos. Leonard cleared his throat. "Mrs. Hendress, do you deny these photos show you removing Mr. Dalton's gutters?" She stammered. "I was enforcing community standards." He sighed. "By destroying private property? That's not enforcement, that's vandalism." Silence filled the room. Patricia's husband kept his head down, embarrassed. The vote was quick and unanimous. Patricia was removed as HOA president, fined for the damage, and ordered to pay restitution for my repairs. As we walked out, Rick whispered, "Guess karma doesn't need gutters to flow." I grinned, but I wasn't done. The best part was still to come, because Patricia's insurance company had just denied her claim. A few days later, the neighborhood was quiet. Again, except for the sound of Patricia, arguing on her front porch. I was washing my truck when I heard her yelling into the phone, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. Her roof was still covered in blue tarps, fluttering in the wind. The once proud HOA queen had been dethroned, and now the storm's aftermath was catching up fast. I tried not to eavesdrop, but her voice carried across the street. "What do you mean it's not covered?" she shouted. "You can't deny my claim. The storm caused the collapse." A pause. Then her voice cracked. "Neglect?" "There was no neglect. She stopped short, realizing the insurance agent had probably seen the same photos everyone else had. Cutting off your gutters, especially weeks before a major storm, doesn't exactly scream accidental damage. When she noticed me watching, she glared like I'd orchestrated the whole thing. I just smiled and waved. The truth was, I didn't have to lift a finger anymore. Karma was doing all the heavy lifting. Within a week, word spread through the neighborhood. Patricia's claim was denied for intentional structural modification. Her roof repairs would cost nearly $28,000 out of pocket. The HOA board, now led by Leonard, voted to suspend her for misconduct. Her fines for damaging my property and violating bylaws were still pending. In small claims court, when the mail carrier came by one morning, he chuckled and said, "Heard she's selling." Sure enough, a for sale sign appeared in her front yard 2 weeks later. Her yard, once obsessively trimmed and patrolled for violations, was now overgrown. No one offered to help. Not after she'd fined half the street for mailbox paint and improper garden edging. The day the moving truck arrived, Patricia avoided eye contact with everyone. Rick and I were on our driveways, quietly sipping coffee as the movers loaded boxes. When she finally stepped into her car, she gave me one last glare. The kind that tries to say, "I'll get even." I didn't say a word. I just pointed up. Rain clouds were rolling in again. As her car disappeared down the street, the first drops began to fall, tapping gently on my brand new stainless steel gutters, still gleaming, still perfect. The rain flowed smoothly down the spouts, away from the foundation, exactly as designed. And in that moment, I couldn't help but think, if you try to cut down what keeps others standing, don't be surprised when your own house falls first. Thanks for watching, folks. If you enjoyed this story and love seeing karma in action, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and tell me, what would you do if your neighbor pulled a stunt like this? Don't forget to subscribe for more wild HOA tales and real-life revenge stories, because trust me, the next one might just top this.